Hi, I'm Teresa Torres, and in this video, I'm going to give a quick overview of our course assumption testing. Before I dive into the details, I want to put this course into context. So in my book, Continuous Discovery Habits, I defined continuous discovery as at a minimum weekly touch points with customers by the team building the product, where they're conducting small research activities in pursuit of a desired product outcome. And I often visualize this definition this way, where the heart of this visual is an opportunity solution tree. At the top of the visual, we're defining a clear outcome. That's where we're setting a metric, something that the team is responsible for driving. It's usually a two-way negotiation between the product leader and the product trio. Once that's in place, that's the purpose of the team, is to drive that outcome. The team is now adopting two research activities on a continuous basis. The first is they're interviewing to discover the opportunity space. Opportunities are unmet needs, pain points, or desires. The key here is your outcome represents business value and your opportunities represent customer value. By taking the time to map them out, the team can make strategic decisions like which opportunities are most important to pursue, which ones will have the most impact on our outcome. Once they choose an opportunity, I want to see teams work with a set of solutions. This allows them to set up a good compare and contrast decision, asking which of these ideas look most promising. We know from decision-making research that compare and contrast decisions are critical for making better decisions. Now, the reason why a lot of product teams don't do this is because they're stuck in project-based research methods where they're testing the whole idea. And we barely have time to test one idea, let alone a set of ideas. The key to unlocking good compare and contrast decisions is to take our solutions, break them down into their underlying assumptions, and then to rapidly test those assumptions. So this course, assumption testing, is really focused on how do we test those assumptions. We're going to start with, I'm going to give you an outcome. I'm going to give you a target opportunity. I'm even going to give you 3 solutions with their assumptions identified and the riskiest assumptions identified. So our starting point will be you will be given a set of risky assumptions, and we'll look at how do we test those, how do we use our assumption test to collect fast data, and then how do we make decisions based on those assumption tests. So let's dive into the details. The first thing we're going to learn is how do we design good assumption tests. The focus on this module is going to be all about how do we match the right research method to any specific assumption. Next, we're going to learn how to define success up front. This is going to help us guard against confirmation bias and team disagreements. I often see teams run experiments and then they can't agree on what the results mean, and basically they wasted their time. So we're going to guard against that by learning how to define success up front. In the next module, we're going to learn how to improve the reliability of our tests. So if you're new to experimenting, one of the most common things that happen is you get a great experiment result, you launch the feature, and you don't see as good a results. A lot of this is due to unreliability in our testing methods. So we're going to learn how to coordinate multiple iterations and multiple variations to ensure that our results represent what we'll actually see in practice after we release the new solution. And then finally, none of this matters if we're not able to choose the right solutions. So we're going to learn how to make decisions about which solutions to build based on what we're learning from our assumption tests. We're really going to dive deep into how do we know if an assumption is reliable, how do we know if an assumption is faulty, how do we collect reliable assumptions so that we're basically collecting building blocks so that our next set of solutions are even better. Now, as I mentioned in the previous visual, there's a lot of components to this overall framework, and this class in particular is a deep dive on assumption tests. If you want to learn about some of the other pieces of that visual, we do have a variety of deep dive courses. We have a course on defining outcomes. We have a course on helping How do you interview to discover opportunities? And then, of course, we have a course on how to map out that opportunity space. And then we do have a course that is a good precursor to this one, which is how do we take our solutions and identify the assumptions they depend upon. That's our Identifying Hidden Assumptions course. That course ends with a prioritization exercise that will help you find your riskiest assumptions. And then that's where this course begins. We start with our riskiest assumptions and we dive into how do we rapidly test them and use what we're learning to make good decisions. All right, I'd love to have you join us. You can learn more about all of these courses at learn.producttalk.org.